Hi folks, this is Professor DiBiase, and today we're going to talk about source use and citation. I'll introduce the topic today and we'll wrap it up in another video later this week. So what is a citation style? Well, it's a system of documenting sources that's tied to a larger set of style guidelines. And what do I mean by a larger set of guidelines? Well, if you were to look, for example, at the APA handbook, it wouldn't just tell you how you cite a source, but it would also give you information on what kinds of language you might use to refer to different kinds of people. It might give you guidance on when you should use a direct quote versus when you should paraphrase. It'll give you information about how to format your pages in terms of spacing and headings, or what a title page should look like. It might even offer guidance on whether or not, for example, they as a singular pronoun is acceptable within that set of guidelines. And there are lots of different types of guidelines depending on the field of study that you're in. So in a lot of the humanities, you might use the Modern Language Association or MLA style guide. APA, the American Psychological Association, is frequently used for psychology and other social and behavioral sciences. CMOS, or the Chicago Manual of Style, is frequently used for history and art. And then IEEE, which is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, is frequently used in things like engineering, computer science, and similar fields. And so they all have certain guidelines pertaining to how you document a source, but also these handbooks give you more information about what writing looks like for that particular field of study. So what do we mean when we talk about citation systems telling us something about the values of the discourses or disciplines to which they belong? Well, we can look at just a couple of issues, right? So should we use a direct quote or should we paraphrase? Well, that will often come down to how much the speaker or language matters in that particular discipline or discourse. So for example, in MLA style, it is perfectly acceptable to directly quote something. It is an important part of working within that system because the fields that make use of it frequently care about the specific language of the authors who are writing. Whereas in APA, direct quotation is often discouraged because you should be able to demonstrate your understanding of a study that you might be citing by paraphrasing it. And the paraphrase helps call attention to the content of the study and not to the specific scientist who conducted the study, because in theory, who conducted the study shouldn't be that important. Similarly, we can think about whether or not a citation style foregrounds dates and the idea of how timely something is, right? Timeliness versus timelessness. So in APA, when we talk about that in another video, you'll see that their in-text citations really foreground the year of publication of a source, because it's important for the reader to understand how contemporary that information is as we're dealing with material that, if it's outdated, might not reflect the best of our scientific knowledge. Whereas in a system like MLA, although we might record the year of publication at the back of the text in our works cited page, we don't call much attention to that in the in-text citation because in the humanities, much of what we're using, not to say it has a timeless quality about it, but frequently there is a sense that the ideas might hold up over time in a different kind of way, or simply that the timing of the idea or its publication is less relevant to the kinds of questions that the fields that use the citation system are trying to answer. So we'll talk really quickly about MLA citation. MLA citation includes two components. There's the in-text citations that occur in the body of your text, and then there's the works cited page that comes at the conclusion of the body of your text. So in-text citations signal source usage to the reader. We use them in MLA for both paraphrase and direct quotation, and they correspond with entries on the works cited page. So for every source you provide in-text citation for, there should be an accompanying bibliographic entry on your works cited page. Unlike APA, MLA in-text citations don't really vary depending on whether it's direct quote or paraphrase, so that is a nice little perk. So in terms of in-text formatting, it requires, at the very least, if these are available, the last name or names of the author or authors and a page number. And these get set in parentheses. So for example, open parentheses, Brandt 75, close parentheses. And you'll notice that gets set within the sentence punctuation prior to the end punctuation. So notice that the citation is within the sentence and not on the outside of the sentence. that we can include with a period rather than putting the period inside of the parentheses or even before the parentheses. There are some exceptions and adjustments, but MLA is pretty easy in this case. So if there's no author or organization, or if there's no author, you might see there's an organization affiliated with the publication. But if you don't have that, you can use a shortened version of the title. You don't want to put the entire title in there. You don't want to put the URL in there. Just a short version of the title, 1 or 2 words, just enough to make it easy for the audience or the reader to find the full citation at the end of the text. And if there are no page numbers, you just omit them. You don't have to put paragraph numbers, you can just omit them. This is particularly true for web documents, and one of the reasons it's not that important to put the page number is that the ability to sort of search the document has rendered that largely moot, particularly for direct quotes, but even paraphrasing makes it pretty easy to find the material. On the Works Cited page, which concludes your paper, there's going to be one entry for each source used in the paper. They'll be formatted with a hanging indent. We can talk about that in a minute. They'll be organized alphabetically, and those entries are alphabetically by author, and then if there's no author, by title. Entries get single spaced with a space between each entry. Now in MLA, there is not a single there's not a separate formula for every kind of source. Instead, there's a list of 9 different kinds of information that you might make use of in a citation, and you simply input them in this order with the appropriate punctuation as you are able to identify them. So if you have the information, you put it where it goes, and if you don't, that's okay. And so what we're going to do right now is actually work our way through an example of this, and there's some optional information like date of publication or city of publication, but these 9 are really the key pieces, and so we're going to go through that with an example, making use of writing about writing textbook. So we have our list of things that we need to cite. So number 1 is the author. So let's say we're going to use Deborah Brandt for our piece. So we have the author's name, Brandt, comma, Deborah, period. And you'll notice that there's a period here that signals we should have a period. The title of the source is the title of her article, Sponsors of Literacy. The title of the container, in this case, is the collection in which it appears. So this collection is writing about writing. That's going to be italicized. Period. I'm sorry, comma. Other contributors, in this case we have editors. So editors, Elizabeth Wardle and Doug Downs. It does not really have in this case the version is simply the edition, so this is the 4th edition of the text. We have the publisher, so we don't really have a number. You'll see more of that in a journal article, right? You might have a version and a number, you might have a volume and a number, but this is our 4th edition. Our publisher is Bedford St. Martin's. You can find that information just on the back of the book. Publication date would be the year of publication, and you can find that right inside the copyright page. And if you were to look at the copyright, the most recent copyright is 2020. It's relatively new. And then we have our page numbers. So for this particular text, our page numbers are pages 245 to 263. We'll then format a hanging indent. This is really easy in Microsoft Word because you can simply highlight the entry, hit format, and then select a hanging indent in docs, it's a little bit more complicated. You'll see that I'm grabbing the left indent and dragging it 1/2 inch, and then I'm grabbing the little rectangle on top and dragging it back, and that will create our hanging indent. Now, some of you are going to ask, I know, how do you cite an interview? This is a little bit trickier, but there is a format for it. So again, what we have the author, we have the date. We need a little bit of information about what it is, and so if we were to look at the interview, and here I'm on the Purdue OWL website, which is a wonderful resource for lots of different kinds, but personal interviews are really easy. As it notes, it's an interview that you've conducted yourself. All you need is the name of the person that you've interviewed. Make a quick note that is a personal interview, and you include the date of that interview. And that's about it. And I really do want to recommend that you check out the owl.purdue.edu. Has a lot of references, but also it's worth noting that Google is in many ways your friend here. If there's ever something that you need to cite and you're unsure how to do it, simply typing in a Google search of the kind of site or the kind of source, and the citation system will generally provide you with the information you need. And don't forget that the librarians are more than happy to help you with this as well through the Ask a Librarian function on our library website.